Hi there folks, and welcome back to Ukes with Alex, the ukulele channel where we dive headfirst into ukulele and ukulele culture and just try and have as much fun as we can along the way. And today we're going to look at ukulele plectrums, which is something that I've not delved massively into in my time. I have used ukulele plectrums for various things, but a lot of people out there at the beginners end of things are advised to use a plectrum, which always brings up the same questions about which one to go for, and then you have to kind of give a basic understanding. And then there are people at the advanced end of things that are okay with using a plectrum if it adds a certain element to a sound, if they're playing in an ensemble, or whether they just, I don't know, they want a kind of more of an attack to their sound. So what we're going to do today is we're going to run through the different types of ukulele specific plectrum and what they're good for and what they're not good for. The main types are, you have natural wool, so this is a felt plectrum made up using natural wool. You have a synthetic felt plectrum, which is made up using a kind of crushed wool, which I think is like 60% natural, and then there's some other fibers in there that give it a slightly denser feel. Then you have a leather plectrum, which can be lots of things and mean lots of things to many people. So you get thick leather plectrums and you get thin leather plectrums, and there might only be a mil thickness between them, but a thin leather plectrum is going to be floppy. A 3.5 mil leather plectrum is going to be fat and a bit more clumsy to use, but it might give you a bit more attack when you play, but we'll go into that more in depth. And then finally, I just want to talk about these plastic ukulele plectrums, which have an almost kind of silicone feel to them. This particular one is translucent. There's a few different ones out there on the market, but don't be too fooled by what you read online. Like if you go into a guitar shop and you just pick up a nylon plectrum and you play it against a nylon string, what you get is just a really bright sound with no definition. That's not a ukulele plectrum. People can use them. By saying that's not a ukulele plectrum, I'm not saying don't use one. I'm just saying I don't sell them because I'm really sick of people breaking strings with those plectrums or scratching instruments on my shop floor and then bringing them back. So they don't really add anything, in my opinion. And I rate my opinion like most people do, you know, so that's just, I'm not going to feature them in this video, and I advise that you give these ones a try first anyway. So first, let's talk about natural wool felt plectrums. They can be very, very thin. You can also get it where people take a nylon plastic plectrum and glue felt either side of it, and the sound that they produce is quite a woolly sound, pun intended and unintended. So a sound that has much more of a darker edge to it, like the low mid frequencies of your playing come out more. It can stifle and mute the sound of the ukulele, which makes sense because typically you associate felt, or you associate this kind of wool material with dampening acoustic sounds anyway. You know, the more of this kind of thing you've got in your room, the better the acoustics tend to be, and a lot of foam is made out of a material that will remind you of this. So I'm gonna just put that to one side a second, and we'll talk about the synthetic wool plectrums. Now these don't come apart on your fingers, you know, they are much more of a formed thing. It feels like they are typically thinner. I've not seen many synthetic wool plectrums that are as fat as this. I'll A-B them for you. So typically a thinner plectrum which has a bit more structure to it. It's still very, very bendy, very flexible, but it's not gonna be too big in your hands. It's gonna have leave more space between the strings as you play, and what you're going to get, I feel, is a slightly heavier attack. So the way that this string responds when you play is more immediate than if you use something like the natural wool. This synthetic felt plectrum gives you, I guess, a bit more of a rounded sound, and they are typically more popular. When I have these in stock, I sell more synthetic wool picks than I do natural wool picks. We're going to A-B these for you now and see what you think. Thumb. Natural wool. Synthetic wool. Next up, we're going to take a look at a Micks pick. This is another synthetic wool pick. It has a scratchy feel and texture to it when you play with this plectrum in your hand, so it grips better. It almost feels like a very, very soft tack sandpaper in your hands, but I think that the benefit of it is it's not going to move around when you play. So if you play, you strum down and you tend to be a little bit clumsy, or you're not really a seasoned player, you might like the way that this won't just fall away and go to the floor. This is a 2.5mm pick. We actually sell two different types of Micks picks, but they're both 2.5mm thickness, which is the same thickness as the synthetic wool plectrums that we sell. But they are less bendy. So this material, whatever it is that makes it, kind of reminds me of the carpet in an office. Does that make sense? Like, it's that kind of scratchy dark grey material that's cut, sort of cut out from a mould. But it does have a lot of attack to it, similar to the synthetic wool plectrum, but with a bit more grip to it. So if that's something you've struggled with in the past, then you might want to try a Micks pick. So I'm going to give that one a play for you now and see what you think. Micks pick, synthetic wool. So I'm hoping that really helps. So of the three there, that natural wool is definitely the darkest and quietest sounding. There's not much give at all. The synthetic wool plectrum does a very similar sound, but with a bit more vibrancy. Like, you can hear it instantly, and you don't have to work quite as hard to get the note to ring out. And then the Micks pick does the same thing again, but slightly thicker. If you're going to ask me my opinion, like, this is the easiest to use. The Micks pick is the easiest one to use for a seasoned player. I think an absolute beginner might still benefit from this natural wool or the synthetic wool. Next up, we're going to take a look at the most popular ones we sell here at Southern Ukulele Store, which is the leather plectrum. Leather plectrums can vary greatly from one to the next. So this is the Southern Ukulele Store branded plectrums. We get these made for us by a leather manufacturer in the UK called Leathergraft. And we also get them sometimes made by another leather worker called Stones Music. But the thickness of these leather plectrums can vary greatly from 2.5mm to 3.5mm from one to the next. We get them cut more as a kind of keepsake for people that have visited the shop, but they are usable. And a lot of people get one, and then the feedback I get is that they've used it for a year and the plectrum has become more bendy and more flexible, and at that point it's time to find a new one. Obviously, like with a leather belt, as you use it, as you bend it and you shape it, it starts to become a bit more like a memory foam mattress. It responds, it softens up, and leather plectrums are the kind of thing that you grow with. So if you use a leather plectrum, you tend to keep hold of one and you just keep using it until it no longer has the elasticity that you require. So that's our Southern Ukulele Store one there, which is just a varying cut of leather. But you can get as scientific as you want with these. So if you like to be scientific about the thickness of your plectrum, we also sell Richter leather plectrums, which are individually available in their thickest size. These are German made leather, so cut leather, and they are very, very thick and not very malleable at all in the 3.5mm set. Or if you want to give it a try and figure out which one's right for you, Richter also sell a varying thickness set of 4 that we do here at Southern Ukulele Store, with a 2.5mm, 2.8mm, 3mm and a 3.5mm. So you can give them all a try, figure out which one you like, and then I suppose you kind of know what you want going forward. But leather plectrums, I think, are the ones that most people bond with, and they're the ones that when I was teaching and I had absolute beginners, the leather plectrum I think is the one that simulates the sound of the actual pad of your thumb better. So I'm going to give a leather plectrum, in fact no, I'm going to give 2 different leather plectrums a try for you now and see what you think. 2.5mm leather. .5mm leather. There wasn't as much of a difference in sound between the two when I'm comparing them. I definitely found the thinner one slightly easier to use because it had a bit more give to it when I'm playing. I felt a bit like I was holding, like, I don't know, this doesn't feel like a Plectrum at this point. I feel like I'm holding an entire credit card or something when I play. So yeah, for me, the thinner leather Plectrum's definitely easier to use. Last up today, we're going to take a look at soft plastic plectrums. These are thicker than a guitar plectrum and they are made out of a different kind of plastic so that when they respond against a nylon or fluorocarbon ukulele string, they don't quite make that nasty snapping plastic bag opening sound that you get. You know, if you see a plastic bag moving around in the wind and it goes ch-ch-ch as it moves around, that's what you get when you play a normal plectrum, a guitar plectrum, against a plastic string. This is much more like, I feel, your fingernail or even possibly the tip of your thumb. It's one step away from a leather plectrum. It's the brightest of the materials we're going to talk about today. So if you like to be heard, or you want something that's going to cut through, or perhaps you're playing some melodies and you want that to work, this is a very good choice for you. Here at Southern Ukulele Store, we do two different thicknesses of these plastic plectrums. They're actually the same diameter in your hand, which is similar again to the diameter of a synthetic wool plectrum, so about 2.5mm. And the harder plastic that we sell is in a blue colour, and that blue one gives off a much less forgiving kind of give when you play against the string. You know, it fights against the string a bit more, which is probably better if you like to play fairly hard or kind of get the maximum amount of sound you can to the breaking point of your ukulele. The clearer translucent plectrums are the most popular, and I have used one of these myself to give you an idea of application. Now, there's no part of me that needs to use a plectrum when I play ukulele, but sometimes when I'm recording I want to double up the sound of the ukuleles I'm playing, and this is a bit like giving a different frequency range of the same thing over. So if I'm doubling up how I play, or I'm playing a melody that I would like to cut through a bit more in the mix, then I would use one of these plectrums. I've had the same one of these in one of my ukulele hard cases now for about 5 years, and it doesn't come out very often, but it's just one of those things I've got when I want a different sound. Also, if I'm playing songs where I like to strum, I quite like to have a little play with these and strum, especially as it simulates more of a guitar sound than a classical ukulele harp-like sound, you know? I'm going to give one of these in a normal gauge and a harder gauge a play for you now and see what you think. And then the thicker material. As you'd imagine, there's a bit more resistance against this, but this is still easier to use. And a little tip I can give you if you're using plectrum for the first time is the further away you hold your fingers from the plectrum, the harder it's going to be to play. So if you've got a thicker plectrum, you kind of need to hold it a bit closer to the string when you play, because there's no give anyway, so you kind of need it to feed through and follow through the string a bit easier. If you hold it further away, you get a very different sound. So this is close, this is further away. There's more of a clack, like the string is making a secondary sound as it leaves the string. Sorry, the plectrum is making a secondary sound as it leaves the string, because it's kind of bounce, 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 like, you know, like a kid with their bum on the stairs going down. That's what happens the further away you get. We're just going to end today's video by having a look through each one in turn. I'm going to pick something this time on each one. So we've got the 3 felt picks, we've got leather picks, and we've got synthetic picks here, okay? And I'll just give you a hint about which one they are before each run through the scale. Okay, natural wool, synthetic wool, the Micks pick, soft leather, hard leather, soft plastic, and hard plastic. Now there's not nearly as much difference when you're playing an individual string, but if you strum a chord, natural wool, synthetic wool, Micks pick, leather, thick leather, soft plastic, hard plastic. I really hope that has answered all of your questions, folks. If you have any questions, yeah, please don't ask me. I feel like I've covered it all in this video. I've been answering this question for about 15 years. Yeah, in all seriousness, if I can help, please do get in touch. But yeah, get in touch via the shop, which is alex@ukulele.co.uk. And in the meantime, folks, I really, really hope this inspires you to pick up a plectrum and try something new. Thank you very much.